and on behalf of the government of Alberta, we are sorry.
Tonight, Alberta becomes the second province to apologize to 60 Scoop survivors.
We'll be following the direction of our, sister nations out on the West Coast.
Thousands of kilometers away in Montreal, a rally in support of stopping the Kinder Morgan pipeline expansion.
We now know that the Inuit art will have a home.
And breaking ground for a multi-million-dollar Inuit art gallery. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. A historic event took place at the Alberta legislature this afternoon. The provincial government made an official apology to the survivors of the 60s Scoop. Alberta Premier Rachel Notley stood in front of her colleagues and many survivors in the gallery. She delivered a formal apology to all Indigenous people impacted by the 60s Scoop.
60 Scoop, to your children, to your parents, to the rest of your families, and to your communities. From me, as Premier of Alberta, from all of us here, as the elected representatives of the people of Alberta, and on behalf of the government of Alberta, we are sorry. For the loss of families, of stability, of love, we are sorry. For the loss of identity, of language and culture, we are sorry. For the loneliness, the anger, the confusion, and the frustration, we are sorry. For the government practice that left you, Indigenous people, estranged from your families and your communities and your history, we are sorry. For this trauma, this pain, this suffering, alienation, and sadness, we are sorry. To all of you, I am sorry.
That was Alberta Premier Rachel Notley apologizing to 60 Scoop survivors today at the Alberta legislature. Joining us now to share his thoughts is a member of the 60 Scoop Indigenous Society of Alberta, Lou Jobs. Lou, thanks so much for taking some time for us here. What were your first impressions of the Alberta government's apology?
Well, I thought it was pretty moving. It hit me pretty hard personally. It was good to hear the Premier stand up and go through the history of the 60 Scoop and read impact statements that we had collected across the province of Alberta. So it was nice to hear that.
Lou, what did it take to get to this apology here today?
It started in 2017, back in January 2017, when we met with the Alberta government, with Honourable Richard Fee and Honourable Daniel Larrabee, and they expressed wanting to form an apology, but they wanted to hear from survivors across Alberta, and that set into motion planning for 6 info sessions, and the information that was collected through those info sessions is what was used to form the apology by Rachel Notley today.
Well, we understand the government of Alberta did not want to make this apology or take place on the floor of the legislature. Do you know why?
I believe it had something to do, I think it would have been timing. They wanted to, honestly, actually, I really don't know why. I would think it would have had something to do with the spring ending of the spring session, but I believe it was extended. I don't know everything. I really don't. I can't answer that honestly. I'm just assuming here.
Lou, you said it was good to hear the apology. Is it one that you accept?
Yeah, I accept it. I think it's good to hear that they admit what they did was wrong, that there was nothing wrong with my mom, right? That she was a good mother. There was no reason to take me, and to hear that from not just one, but all of the government, right? Because each member of the government here, each party of the government stood up and apologized. It was in their own fashion. It was nice to hear that there was a unity here.
Well, that's good for you, Lou. We appreciate you taking some time to speak with us shortly after this apology was made.
Oh, you're very welcome. Right? Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
And we'll have much more on today's apology on the show tomorrow. Now to Kinder Morgan's proposed Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. With Thursday's deadline looming, there is growing doubt among investors, contractors, and government officials about reaching a deal to save the $7.4 billion pipeline expansion. Houston-based Kinder Morgan set a May 31st deadline to decide if it will proceed with construction of the pipeline. The deadline was set in part because of frustrations with delays caused by the British Columbia government. Ottawa has promised the pipeline would be built with or without Kinder Morgan, offering to compensate the company or any other builder against losses related to delays. The Prime Minister was asked about that today, just 3 days before the deadline.
This pipeline built because we know that Canadians know that we need to both build a strong economy, which includes getting our resources to new markets safely and securely, while at the same time protecting the environment, which means bringing in world-class oceans protections plans, moving forward with a national price on pollution. These kinds of things are what Canadians expect. We continue to engage in financial discussions on the way we are going to do it, and when we have something to announce, you can be sure we will announce it. If
Trans Mountain fails, it would be the third major Canadian export pipeline project to stall in 2 years. Green Party leader Elizabeth May has pleaded guilty to criminal contempt of court charge for violating an injunction at a Kinder Morgan worksite in Burnaby, BC. May was arrested back in March along with NDP MP Kennedy Stewart while attending a protest at the site. May argues permits issued for the project did not respect the rights of Indigenous people. Dozens of people have been arrested for protesting against the project, which has been approved by the federal government. We'll have more coming up later in the show. And details about a leak at Kinder Morgan's existing Trans Mountain pipeline. Tuesday's weather forecast starting on the east coast. Sunny, 15 above in Fredericton, 13 in Halifax, -1 in Nain, -2 in Inukjuak with snow. Sunny across much of Quebec, 15 in Montreal and Quebec City, 9 in Saguenay. A cooler day in southern Ontario, 17 in London, Ottawa, North Bay, and Sault Ste. Marie. 17 as well in Sudbury and Wawa. Rain in Sioux Lookout, and 11. In northern Manitoba, sunny and 14 in Flin Flon and the Pas. Chilly and wet in Winnipeg with a high of 13. 11 in rain in Brandon. In Saskatchewan, 12 in Swift Current, Regina, and Yorkton. Sunny and 16 on Tuesday in Buffalo Narrows and La Ronge. Welcome back. Opposition to Kinder Morgan's Trans Mountain Pipeline project in British Columbia isn't only coming from the West. On Sunday, a large rally in Montreal saw First Nation and non-Indigenous activists express solidarity with their Western counterparts battling the pipeline. Tom Fenario has the story.
The bloated gray clouds hanging heavy over Montreal threatened rain all day, but it wasn't until the Red Tail Spirit Singers performed Mini Wakoni did it begin to shower.
Well, yeah, it's a water song, so of course they brought the rain.
Despite the weather, Sedalia Fazio delivered the traditional Mohawk Thanksgiving address to nearly 1,000 people gathered downtown to rally against the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Known colloquially as the words that come before all else, the address gives thanks to the Creator for all life forms, be they plants, animals, or insects. Life that Fazio strongly believes is endangered by fossil fuel-driven climate change.
Let's hope that this black snake that they're threatening to pass through all our lands to kill our mother, to kill our waters, is stopped.
The proposed Trans Mountain project is an expansion of an existing pipeline running from near Edmonton to Burnaby, BC. The expanded pipeline will see its capacity increase nearly threefold to 890,000 barrels a day flowing through the territory of several First Nation peoples.
We know this pipeline can be built if we want to respect the Paris Agreement. We know this pipeline can be built if we want to respect reconciliation with First Nation. And Quebecers are saying today, we're standing with you in BC, we're standing with you First Nation, and we'll do whatever it needs in order to block this pipeline.
Oil is done. It's finished.
During his speech, Grand Chief Serge Otsi-Simon of nearby Ganasatake Mohawk territory echoed that sentiment.
We're possibly going to start a movement to boycott all products and services from Alberta. You know, we could get a lot of people involved in this, and I hope it doesn't go that way.
AFN Regional Chief Ghislain Picard is a signee of the Treaty Alliance, a solidarity accord of 150 Indigenous nations that states they will collectively challenge Alberta tar sands expansion projects, such as Trans Mountain. Picard said many here have their eyes on May 31st, the deadline Kinder Morgan has given to abandon Trans Mountain unless BC agrees to stop obstructing the section of pipeline running through the province.
We're keeping tabs on whatever is being said, and we'll be following the direction of our sister nations out on the west coast.
For Sedalia Fazio, the solidarity of Indigenous and non-Indigenous allies against tar sands expansion is encouraging, no matter what the May 31st deadline brings.
It gives us hope, but whether the powers that be are going to listen, I don't know.
Tom Tenario, APTN National News, Montreal.
Kinder Morgan reported an oil spill over the weekend near Kamloops, BC. They had to shut down the Trans Mountain pipeline while they attempted to clean it up. This latest spill happening just days before that deadline the company imposed. Here's APTN's Tina House with more on the story.
This Facebook Live video shows crews starting to clean up at Kinder Morgan's pump station in Darfield, BC. Land Defender Canahoos Manuel was able to gain access close to where the spill happened and captured this video from a Kinder Morgan representative that was working on site.
So we're fitting, cracked, leak detection. We shut the station down. Our people came out, saw the release. The line was shut down. We're now cleaning it up. It is that simple.
And why is this dirt getting hauled in?
We're making a berm to put contaminated material in so we can move it away. So we get it into.
So what is the contaminated material?
It's rocks and dirt.
Reuben George from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation says he's not surprised.
We did a 80-page study that showed that there's not if, but when a spill will happen, 87% chance of a spill happening.
Trans Mountain released a statement stating that internal safety system notified them of an operational disruption and the station was quickly isolated. Crews are monitoring the site with no ongoing concerns outside the pump station at this time, and no waterways were affected.
The writing's on the wall, everything's changing. You know, if you think of $9 billion and the green energy initiatives that we could start for this country and be one of the leaders and create more jobs, create a better economy, like with the countries that we've seen that went green, that makes more sense.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Protesters who were arrested on Burnaby Mountain at the Kinder Morgan tank farm were back in court in downtown Vancouver. APTN's Amber Bernard was there and has this update. Amber, thanks for joining us. What can you tell us about what happened in court today?
So land and water defenders showed up at the Supreme Court of British Columbia for breaches that happened against the injunction at the main terminal in Burnaby from March 23rd onwards.
Were any of the charges dropped against any of the protesters?
Yes, so 5 of those charges were dropped. The judge had ruled that, you know, these arrests didn't give proper notification that there was an injunction, so they were wrongfully arrested and those had been dropped.
What kind of attention to the cause did Green Party leader Elizabeth May attract with her guilty plea in court today?
So Elizabeth May pleaded guilty voluntarily in court today. For March 23rd, she was among about 120 protesters at the Burnaby terminal. And so she pleaded guilty, and there was a joint submission made for a $500 fine as her punishment. However, the judge ruled that because of her high status in Canada and the fact that she has practiced law, that she should be held at a higher punishment. And so then he issued a $1,500 fine, which is due this Friday by 4 p.m.
Lots of interesting stuff going on. Amber, we appreciate you taking some time to join us and fill us in.
Thank you, Dennis.
And to Ottawa now, where Kinder Morgan took up a good chunk of today's question period in the House of Commons. The NDP and Conservatives fired several questions at the government. One NDP MP wanted to know why taxpayers' money may be used to cover any potential losses the Trans Mountain project might incur.
Mr. Speaker, mobilization and resentment over the Kinder Morgan project are increasing. Even 5,000 kilometers away from British Columbia, people are angry. Yesterday in Montreal, thousands of individuals came out into the streets and answered the call of environmental groups, artists, and Indigenous groups. They do not want their money, billions of dollars, to be given to an oil company. Since when is it this government's policy to give a blank check that will use our money to be given to a foreign company?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member knows, these major energy projects are controversial. They're controversial among provinces. They're even controversial within political parties. There might even be members within the New Democratic Party, maybe even from Alberta, who think it's good for Canada. I don't know. We also know that there are 43 Indigenous communities, 33 of them in the province of British Columbia, who think it's a good idea because they believe that the future of our energy resources should be a shared prosperity and Indigenous peoples should be part of it.
In other news, ground has been broken on a new $65 million Inuit Art Center in Winnipeg. That story and more coming up. Here's the rest of Tuesday's weather forecast. Picking back up in northern Alberta, 22 under the sun in High Level, sunny 21 in Grand Prairie, 15 in Red Deer, Medicine Hat, and Lethbridge. In British Columbia, 24 in Kamloops, 22 in Campbell River, 23 in Bella Coola, sunny, and 23 in Smithers, 25 under sunny skies in Fort Nelson. In the Yukon, rain and +1 in Rock River. Over to NWT, 24 under sunny skies in Fort Liard, 12 in Ray Lakes and Norman Wells. -9 in Sax Harbor, 6 below in Pawatuck, -2 in Inuvik. In Nunavut, -2 in Arviat, -1 in Baker Lake, -4 in Whale Cove, -2 in Iqaluit on Tuesday, 0 in Pangerton. Welcome back. An update now on a group of First Nations kids who this weekend put their best foot forward during the annual Ottawa race. They've been inspired by a community leader to learn the art of running. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
It's an early morning start for Chief Troy Thompson. He's warming up here in Ottawa for his third marathon.
Well, my goal is to finish in 3.5 or less. It's part of the preparation. I want to qualify for Boston in Toronto, I need to do a sub 3 hour 15 minute. So I'm really confident I'm going to get there.
Thompson also has other goals: to fight childhood obesity in his community of Akwesasne. He says running is a great outlet. It's cheap. All you need is a good pair of running shoes. That's why he's been working with this group of kids to help prepare them for their first marathon.
Sadly, I'm not going to get to witness them at all because I'll be running my race. I'm pretty bummed out, but I'm very, very excited for them, obviously.
As Chief Thompson heads for the starting gate for the 42-kilometer race, the kids arrive at City Hall and relieve some last-minute jitters by hamming it up for the camera. 3, 2, 1. And with a quick countdown, they hit the pavement.
We're excited for our son and all the kids racing.
It's not quite a full marathon. They're among 1,500 eager runners, and it doesn't take long for them to finish the 1-kilometer route. Teacher Angel Brandt is their biggest fan. She's been a supporter on the sidelines since they began their practices.
It was excellent. The kids had lots of fun. We're so glad we have so many participants. Hopefully next year we'll have double.
Over 2 hours later, Chief Thompson finishes the full marathon with his personal best.
Yeah, really happy. A little tired, but yeah, it went as planned.
Thompson says he's hopeful more kids will follow his lead in next year's run weekend. As for new goals for himself, he's making plans to run the Boston Marathon next spring. Anna Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
And congratulations. 3 hours of running is a lot of running. After years of planning, city leaders gathered at the Winnipeg Art Gallery last week to break ground for the Inuit Art Centre. Ashley Branson was there and has more.
Okay. A new home for the world's largest public collection of contemporary Inuit art is set to open in 2020, just in time for Manitoba's 150th birthday. The centre will connect Canada's north and south by sharing art and stories and expand hands-on programming for students.
It's a joyful event for all of us because we now know that the Inuit art will have a home where most people who seek Inuit history can come to this place and know more about Inuit way that in the truthful way.
A new exhibit is marking the historic groundbreaking. Sakiayuk, Art and Craft from Nunatsiavut. It's the first major exhibition on the art of the Labrador Inuit.
This is an exhibition that addresses a long and hidden history of Nunatsiavut art and craft, created over decades of production from the 1940s to today.
Sakiayuk means to be visible in the Nunatsiavut dialect of Inuktitut. Artists like Chantel Anderson will be more than visible after displaying her art in the exhibit. She created a woven amaudi, a parka worn by Inuit women. Anderson tells us how she created the traditional Inuit clothing.
I used the overshot pattern and I wove about 7 yards of fabric, which I then turned and I made a pattern for the jacket without basing it on any other patterns that I've seen.
Sakiayuk Art Exhibition runs to October 14th. Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Looks like it's going to be quite a center. That's your APTN National News for this Monday. For more news, including much more on today's 60s Scoop apology, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. Now stick around, an encore presentation of the season finale of APTN Investigates is next. Dennis Ward, have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.